Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
Hey guys, Jerred Moon here from End of 3 Fitness and your host of the Betterhumanology podcast. Today we have an interview with Peter Keller from Fringe Sport. He is the CEO and founder and has a ton of great information to share with us today. We'll be talking garage gyms, we'll be talking business, we'll be talking travel, we'll be talking fitness, and a lot of stuff in between. So stick around for this podcast. In the meantime, since we are talking garage gyms and to the CEO and founder of a strength and conditioning equipment company that sells equipment for the garage gym athlete, I want you to go ahead and go check out garagegymathlete.com. We're doing a lot of cool stuff over there. The book and the membership site is going to open up again soon. We opened it up last year, but if you're interested at all in being a garage gym athlete, or if you already are a garage gym athlete, make sure you check out garagegymathlete.com today. All right, guys, let's talk to Peter Keller. All right, Peter, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Betterhumanology podcast. Super glad to have you here, man. I definitely want to have you on because you're a very interesting dude. Having had conversations with you about business and just fitness and garage gyms, I think that it's been great. Wanted to have you on. So welcome to the show. And if you could start by giving my listeners just a little bit of background of who you are, where you come from, and I don't know, your minute speech of who Peter Keller is.
Yeah, awesome. And it's a pleasure to be on the show. I really enjoy it, and it's an honor to be here. So I'm Peter Keller. I'm the CEO and founder of Fringe Sport, and you can find us online at fringesport.com. So about 5 years ago, I founded Fringe out of my garage. We are a strength and conditioning equipment company that goes to market largely through e-commerce or multi-channel retail. So basically, wherever you are, we can ship you a barbell, basically. And that's what I've been hanging my hat on for the past 5 years. We are based out of Austin, Texas. We've got about 15 employees, did about $5 million in revenue last year. Got a pretty nice little retail spot here in Austin with a great gym there. I've also got a pretty awesome garage gym at my house, which I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I got a couple of little girls, a lovely wife. I do travel quite a bit, and that's one of my passions. And one of the reasons that I founded Fringe is that I really wanted to help our customers out, but also wanted to build a lifestyle where I could get out and about quite a bit. So I know a little bit about travel hacking, maybe more than a little bit.
Yeah.
Know a little bit about adventure, know a lot about garage gyms, know a lot about barbells, bumper plates, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I wanted to have you on, man, because the Betterhumanology podcast is all about making someone better. And honesty, the capacity in which we could make someone better by giving them information can be all over the map. And so I want to kind of start, honestly, on the business side of things, because I think a lot of people maybe could relate with how you started Fringe. What was the kind of the catalyst there that made you want to start this business?
I'm a terrible employee.
Yeah, unemployable, if you will.
Unemployable.
Yeah.
That's actually something that I joke about with some of my entrepreneur friends. I'm like, oh yeah, you're a real visionary entrepreneur, but the real secret is that you can't hold a job.
Right. Yeah, can't hold a job, so you got to have your own.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So did you have any inspiration from 4-Hour Workweek type stuff, Tim Ferriss style? I'm just curious because I kind of know the business model. I want to know if that's, that book hugely inspired me in starting my own online business. So I was curious if that, had anything to do with you starting Fringe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was joking about being unemployable. The reality is I was actually employed for 10 years in an e-commerce company. I had always, from being a small child, wanted to own my own business, back to, selling people candy in high school and buying stuff out of the back of Boys Life magazine. I don't know. Did you ever get Boys Life magazine?
I didn't, but I'm familiar with it, but no, I didn't get it. I seem like a Boy Scout, but I'm not, yeah.
Okay, maybe I read you wrong. But yeah, so I'd buy things out of the back of Boys Life magazine, sell them to my friends. So when college rolled around, the dot-com boom was in full swing, and I was super excited, but I really wanted to be involved in e-commerce because I'd always been interested in selling physical items. So I ended up getting a job and ended up working 10 years at that place. And by the way, it's called livingdirect.com. if you need any appliances online, you should check it out. They were really good to me, and they'll be really good to you.
All right.
So, end of that ad for Living Direct. But yeah, so I was there for 10 years. The whole way through, I basically wanted to start my own business. And even at the first interview there, I'd said, they said, what are you going to be doing in 5 years? And I said, I'm going to quit and start my own business, which is, by the way, maybe not something to say in an interview.
Right.
But
Yeah.
whatever, they hired me.
Yeah.
So as I worked my way through there, I was, coming up with business ideas, starting a few like little businesses on the side, but everything that I started on the side failed in retrospect because I had this real fear of failure. I never put 100% of myself into these side ventures. And again, I've done a lot of looking in the mirror about this. So the thing was, I was just really afraid to fail. So if I didn't go full speed ahead on a project and the project failed, then I saved my ego because I said, well, the reason that failed is because I didn't put 100% of myself in there.
Right.
It's not because I'm not good enough or I didn't have a good enough idea or whatever of the other, myriad things. It's just because I didn't focus on it. But around, I can't remember when 4 Hour Workweek came out, but when it came out, a ton of my friends were saying, Pete, you need to read this book, read this book, read this book. And finally, I bought it. I had a long flight to Kuwait in maybe early 2010, I think, is that long flight to Kuwait. And I bought the book because my father at the time was living in Kuwait. And I read the book between kind of that flight, bouncing around the desert in the back of my dad's SUV. And it was just an epiphany for me. There were all these ideas that I'd had on my own that then just kind of coalesced and came together in Tim's book. Now, I wasn't really in, and still am not very into the whole VA thing, but
Right.
a lot of the other things, and a lot of his ideas about how to make a business and why you should make a business really made a ton of sense to me then and now. So on that trip, when I was baking in the summer heat, I said, okay, when I get back to the States, it's going to be pedal to the metal, come hell or high water. I'm at very minimum going to go all in on a business. And if it fails, great. At least I went all in. So I thought a lot about what I wanted to do with my life. And Tim in the book talks about a muse business, which, by the way, to skip forward, Fringe Sport is a horrible muse. And I'll talk about why that is. But his muse business is basically the Tim Ferriss muse business is basically a passive income business that you work on, fairly minimally, but then just kind of provides income coming in. And even if you're not working on the business, income still comes in. So I thought, oh, that'd be great. I took a look at what I was passionate about because I knew that I could go deep in something that I was passionate about, and something that I was not passionate about, I would not want to go deep and really learn everything about that topic. So it honestly, at the end of the day, came down to either starting a watch business, because I really love watches, or starting a functional fitness equipment business or strength and conditioning equipment business. So back then I was really into CrossFit, and today still really into CrossFit. And I believed in the movement and saw that there was this back to basics, back to your garage gym vibe going on. And I thought that I could really contribute and build a meaningful company in that space and for that community. And I also thought that I was also reading a little bit of the ideas of lean startup. Are you familiar with lean?
Yeah.
So one of the biggest takeaways of lean startup is prove your market by putting out an MVP, a minimum viable product, and selling that to someone. Because the ultimate arbiter of success or failure of a business is, can you sell something to someone? And so I looked at the cost for putting out an MVP in the watch market and in the CrossFit, and in the strength and conditioning equipment market. And I thought that the MVP in the strength and conditioning equipment market would be $2,000 to $5,000 to get that product to market. And in the watch market would be $50,000.
Wow.
And this was before Kickstarter was really in full swing. So if I were doing this exercise again today, who knows, maybe I'd be doing a watch company.
Yeah.
But what I ended up doing is I used some of my connections and sourced a pair of gymnastic rings from overseas, from China, and went out to market with that product. And I started hustling. I went to every CrossFit gym in Austin. I hit up tons of bloggers. I hit social media hard. I threw up a Shopify website. I put them on eBay because this was before the heyday of Amazon for the marketplace sellers. And I just started hustling, doing everything I could to grab, a sale here, a sale there. And that was in 2010. We were in my garage with a bunch of gymnastic rings in my garage. My wife's car kicked out into the driveway. And honestly, I had to dismantle my personal garage gym, which was a sad day for me.
Right.
Like bittersweet day.
Oh, that would be terrible.
Yeah. But I have an amazing garage gym now, so it all worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just started selling those gymnastic rings, and once we sold a bunch of the gymnastic rings, I thought, well, you know what? If somebody buys a gymnastic ring from me, they'll probably buy a kettlebell from me too. And so I reached out to a US-based supplier of kettlebells, started selling kettlebells, and once we had some decent volume there, I added bumper plates in and barbells. And I still use this minimum viable product, lean startup model. So I wanted to have my own brand of kettlebells. So what I did at first is I brought in kettlebells from a US-based supplier that were not my own brand. And then I saw, is the market there for this product? And then once I proved that people were willing to buy it from me, then I actually went and made my own brand of kettlebells and started bringing those in.
That's awesome.
And that's what I did in the early days. And we just kind of grew and grew and grew. And, eventually we reached a point. So I'd mentioned before that Fringe was a bad muse. The reason that Fringe is a bad muse is because Fringe then and now takes an enormous amount of my time. It's my job,
right?
Literally.
Yeah.
But that's not a bad thing. At the time I thought, hey, I'm looking for a few $1,000s a month, and then, maybe I'll go live on a beach the way Tim Ferriss, wants you to.
Yeah.
But my wife and I had a few kids, and this idea of, making only a few $1,000s a month and living on a beach is pretty romantic if you're 25 years old and don't really have a ton of connections. But when you have, real connections, there's something that's not very interesting about that, or it loses a lot of its romanticism. And then B, I saw that Fringe could be super meaningful to a very large community of people, but it could only be so if I dedicated myself to Fringe. Mm-hmm. And in the pre-show, we talked a little bit about, you said, hey, what projects do you want me to mention, that sort of thing. And I said, just Fringe. And you had said, oh, okay, so you've got one focus. So I realized that at that time, I needed to have one focus, and that focus be Fringe. Otherwise, Fringe was never going to reach its potential for our customers, for the world, or for myself. So I've been focused fully on Fringe since then.
And I love that, man. I think we did mention also in the pre-show the book, The One Thing, and I've actually talked about it on this podcast before. And I love that dedication. I think that's the biggest takeaway I get from your story right there is if you're going to do something, you have to go all in. You have to have your one thing to fully see its potential. I know that to be true just in my own business because when I started it, I was forced to do very much a side part-time thing because I was active duty military, and there's no getting out of that commitment other than like committing a crime or, something pretty heinous. But but once I had the ability to focus more on one thing, you can really scale, like you said, serve your customers better and just be better, and that's what we're talking about today. An interesting thing, you said your first project was gymnastic rings. That was my first DIY project on my website. That kind of got things, me moving down the garage gym path for my audience at Into 3 Fitness. So that's pretty cool.
That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, man.
One more thing to just talk about the one thing. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making. So at first, if you're an entrepreneur, of course, you may have to have a number of projects going, either, your day job and a side project or whatever, but you don't know which project's going to get traction at the very start. But once you start to get traction, I see a lot of people not wanting to kill off these other projects. They say, well, I've got, a lot of traction on project A, a little bit on B, a little bit less on C. So let's just kind of keep all these balls rolling. And the reality is that you may end up killing everything if you don't focus on the one that's getting traction.
I think that's, yeah, dude. Yeah. I'm 100% on board with that entire message. And I love that you brought that today because that's huge. I do want to shift to, kind of your traveling. We're friends on the, social medias, if you will. And, I see you, posting travel pics and videos and stuff, all super cool. Looks pretty awesome, but, maintaining fitness with a crazy, crazy travel schedule. What's your secret there? I actually don't travel too much myself, so I rarely run into that situation. So what is your secret?
So the secret is to just get your reps in.
Yeah, right.
I mean, in short, that's what it is. But to broaden that a little bit, so let me give you a couple of examples of things that I've done when on my travels. So in 2014, that was a really heavy travel year for me. I went to Asia 2 or 3 times, I can't remember. And when I go to Asia, I typically go to multiple countries. So that year I went to Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, China, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan. I think that's about it in Asia. But then I also went to Mexico that year, Portugal that year, Hawaii, and then a bunch of travel within the lower 48 United States. I also did a Smolov cycle. I'm assuming that you're familiar, but
Yep.
if some of your listeners are not familiar. So Smolov is a Russian squat cycle that is really, really heavy. Basically, all you do is squat your butt off. You do a little bit of accessory work, but it's a ton of volume and a ton of weight on squats.
Mm-hmm.
So during that year, I had 2 very different experiences with working out when I traveled. When I was doing Smolov, I literally traveled with my weightlifting shoes. I've got the Nike Romaleos, which are some, pretty nice, but very big and like bulky
Right.
weightlifting shoes, and a belt. And everywhere that I was going to go, I looked at online ahead of time and found a gym there that I could do my squats. So I did that, and so there's a lot of planning. And honestly, when I did that, I decided that I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, so 2 things here, I'm a super minimalist traveler. So last year, for example, I did one of those crazy Asia trips where I do a bunch of different countries, and all I traveled with was my GoRuck GR1,
Mm-hmm.
which is a fairly small backpack. I mean, not tiny, but it's definitely not a big backpack. And so for 3 weeks out of a relatively small backpack. The Romaleos, for example, would take up almost the entire main compartment of that pack. So
Right.
for me to lug those along on travel basically doubled the amount of stuff that I carried with me.
Yeah.
The other thing was that during that squat cycle, I went to Hawaii with my family. And one of the things that I found is I was thinking when it was like, hey, do you want to go surfing? Do you want to go hiking? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? I was always thinking, how is this going to affect my day at
Right.
the gym,
Yeah.
either today or tomorrow? And when you're in Hawaii with your family, like, you don't want to be thinking about that.
Right.
So I modified what I do to just say, look, you're getting to travel, you're getting to be in all these amazing, beautiful, and crazy places. So use what's there and don't worry so much about what specific cycle you're on. So, for example, I just got back from the Dominican Republic where I went with my wife just on holiday. And as soon as I checked into the hotel, I go and check out the weight room. And the weight room was kind of crap.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I said, okay, no worries. We were staying in a resort that was right on the beach. And I said, you know what? I am not the greatest swimmer. So what I'm going to do is, I mean, I'm a pretty good swimmer. I was in the swim team when I was a kid, but I don't really get my reps in with
Mm-hmm.
swimming. And so what I thought is, I'm going to forget about weights for this holiday and I'm just going to swim. And so every day I made this like little path in the ocean where I would just swim laps. And so I'd go swim laps in the beautiful ocean, go back, drink some rum, play with my wife,
Yeah.
swim some more laps. So, and that's something that I really try to do is just wherever I am, try to see what unique, if you're traveling, try to see what unique or really interesting experiences you can have that are still furthering your fitness.
Yeah. So you sound a lot like me, or I would say anyone who's trying to really follow programs. Is you kind of get like, crazy about it. You don't want to miss a day. And I know going all the way back to when I was like doing the bodybuilding style lifting, like I would choose not to do things that are really fun that other people should be doing. I should have been doing, but I'm like, no, because I can't go on that trip because they probably won't have weights for me to curl and stuff. Like I was really crazy about it at one point in my life, and I'm still crazy about fitness, but yeah, I think I've taken a little bit more of your approach to trying to blend having fun with what you do, but at the same time I don't travel a lot, so it's not as big of a deal for me. But it brings up a different question I have for you, because you do sound when you're in a program very regimented. Are you really regimented in your day-to-day life? Do you have any routines or anything that you do each and every single day, whether that's in business or fitness, or do you kind of, and it doesn't have to be fitness routines, like do you have a morning routine or a certain time you work out every day? Are you very structured, or are you just kind of take each day as it comes?
I'm fairly structured. I will say that the past few years, I had a big focus on my fitness, and I always made sure that I got my reps in. So I'm a big fan of Atomic Athletes programming.
Yeah.
And I go to the Atomic Athlete gym here in Austin, Texas, and they have a fluid periodization idea for a fitness model. So basically what happens is you do 4 to 6 weeks of a strength cycle, you deload, you go into maybe 4 to 5 weeks of a work capacity cycle, and then you deload and go into like 3 to 5 weeks of an endurance cycle, and then just repeat that back. So for the past 2 years, I've been following that pretty regularly. And the main way that I do that is when I'm in Austin going to the gym, and when I'm not in Austin, trying to get those reps in wherever I am. That said, this year I've been focused even more on Fringe Sport, and I made a conscious decision that I'm not going to worry as much about my fitness this year, and I'm going to focus on the business. But in terms of a routine, I know I'm seeing more and more traffic, I guess, or chatter online about everybody's morning routines. Mine is actually pretty boring, but it's good for me.
Right.
So my kids wake up between 6:30 and 6:45 most mornings. I get up with them, and on weekday mornings, I immediately go downstairs, let the dog out, feed the dog, start the coffee, empty the dishwasher, start the kids' lunch, for them to take to school or whatnot. Yeah. And then after that, I either walk or ride my bike to take the kids to school, or go out into the garage and get a few reps in. I've got a rower in my garage, and I hate rowing. Right. So I've made and I used to hate running, by the way, which now I love running.
Yeah.
So I made a pact for myself. I'm not really going to be crazy about my fitness in 2016, but I'm going to learn to love rowing, or I'm just going to row my butt off. And if I row my butt off and I still hate it at the end of 2016, that's fine. But I'm going to put a lot of meters on that rower.
That's awesome.
In the process. So, that's my somewhat boring routine.
But you got one. And that's a big thing I've, like you said, a lot of people are talking about it. It's something I'm kind of interested in, because we kind of do experiments on this show, and we've talked about the morning routine and whether or not we think that it's valuable for people. Like, does it actually help someone be more productive? And it really comes down to, I think, what type of person you are, because does it help you? Like, is it the placebo effect? Even though the placebo effect is really beneficial for people, like that's a good thing. But like, I know I'm super structured, so a morning routine helps me. But the co-host, he is like the most like not structured person in the world. So like for him, a morning routine feels like prison. But he's still very successful, gets all of his work done and everything. So it's something I'm really fascinated in, and like to hear everyone's different topic, especially from someone who's running a really successful business and all that stuff. So tell me more about this garage gym, man. I know that you market a lot towards garage gym athletes, and I obviously cater a lot of my content at Into 3 Fitness to garage gym athletes and stuff. So tell me about what you think. Tell me a little bit about your garage gym and maybe some of the popular stuff you see garage gym athletes out there buying that would help someone get started in a garage gym.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a pretty sweet garage gym back in 2010 before I founded Fringe Sport. And I want to talk about that a little bit and then talk about my current garage gym to contrast the two, let's say.
Okay.
Because back in 2010, when I had built my garage gym, that was the culmination of basically, and that's when I dismantled it to focus on Fringe. But it took me basically 5 years to build a pretty sweet garage gym in 2010. And then right now I built my garage gym in like a week for, my current garage gym. So back in 2010, what I was doing is I had gotten into the CrossFit style of training, and I was the ultimate Craigslist ninja. So I was haunting Craigslist. This is before IFT, or at least before I knew about IFT, which I know you've talked about. IFT being the program where you, among many other uses, you can tell it to just troll Craigslist and send you a text or an email whenever somebody posts a Concept 2 rower or a squat rack or what have you.
Yeah, and I'll post a link to how that works in the show notes of this. Yeah.
Sounds great. But so this was back in the day when, either I wasn't smart enough to use IFT or IFT wasn't around. And so I was basically just searching Craigslist manually all the time. And anytime I saw a really good deal, I would jump on it and buy it, whether I kind of needed it or not. Because one of the great things about building a gym in this way is, so there are a couple of things. If you see something cheap on Craigslist that is kind of exactly what you're looking for, you can always buy it and then resell it for what you bought it for, or even more if it's cheap enough. So don't have, this analysis paralysis.
Right.
Just, if you see something you think that would be great in your gym, if the price is right on Craigslist, just buy it. Because you're going to be out, the money for a little while and the time that it takes to pick it up, but you can always turn around and resell it. So for example, if you see a Concept 2 rower for $400, you should always buy that rower basically.
Right, automatically.
Yeah, because you're going to be, let's say it's a bad buy, it doesn't fit in your garage, or you decide you don't like rowing or something like that. You can turn around and sell it for $500 or $600 or $400 and then just be cost neutral on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what I did from 2005 to 2010, is I would always be jumping on inexpensive items on Craigslist, moving them into my garage, seeing how they fit in my garage, and then flipping them and selling them if I didn't like them. But what I ended up at the end, the garage gym that I loved and then I tore down, was a squat cage. So I had a pretty nice, pro level squat cage that I had bought for super cheap. I, of course, had a bench. I had dumbbells. I had some barbells, including at the time when I founded Fringe, an early Penlay bar, which I actually bought from Glenn Penlay before he joined up with Muscle Driver and all that. So it was one of his very first barbells. And I had some bumper plates that I had pieced together here and there. This is before you could buy bumper plates on Craigslist, because this was back when they were so rare that you basically just had to order them.
Right, yeah, it was like near impossible. Yeah, I remember those days, yeah.
So because my training is very functional fitness oriented, back then and to now, that's pretty much what I had was, a bench, a squat rack, a barbell, some bumper plates. Sorry, I had some iron plates as well that I bought for super cheap off of Craigslist. Some dumbbells. I also had a few kettlebells, and that was about it. And I love that. I would run. That was at the time when I was running like 15 to 20 miles a week, and then basically doing CrossFit out of my garage 3 days a week. And that was pretty awesome. But then I founded Fringe and killed it. So.
Yeah, right.
So here's what I've got now. So 2016, I was lucky enough that I bought a new house last year. And when we were looking for a house, we actually looked for one, myself and my wife, of course, we actually looked for one that had a 3-car garage. So that, and the deal was that one bay of the garage would be storage / my workbench and things like that. One bay would be our garage gym, and then one bay would be for my wife's car.
Yeah, I can't tell my wife what you just said, or else we're going to have to move.
Yeah, I know. Well, I will say that I'm in my office right now, and I can look out the window, and I can see my wife's car in the driveway. So her car has not made it into the garage yet. The garage gym has basically taken over 2 bays, which I'm pretty happy about.
Yeah, nice.
But I can't let her listen to this podcast because she might get reminded.
Yeah, keep it on the DL.
Exactly. So what I've got in the garage gym right now is I've got a 4-foot rack. So if you walked into a CrossFit gym and saw their pull-up rack, so Fringe Sport makes those, and I have a 4-foot section of the rack bolted into my floor and installed into my wall, which is pretty awesome. So of course you can use that for pull-ups, you can use that for squatting, benching. I've got a kids pull-up bar so my kids can play on it. I've got a dip station that can go on there, and you can hang rings from it, all sorts of things. So if you can afford it, that is an awesome, and you've got ceilings that will allow it. That is an awesome, awesome, awesome thing that you can throw in your garage. And it's basically the centerpiece of my garage gym, and I love it. But awesome. It is a little bit on the spendy side. And of course, you have to bolt it in permanently.
Yeah.
So beyond that, I've got 2 rowers down there because, as I mentioned before, I'm trying to learn to love rowing. And another one for my wife, or my kids are a little young for it, but when I get on one rower, they still get on the other and kind of pretend to row or quasi-row. I've got a full set of dumbbells, the rubber-headed hex dumbbells, which I use not really for curls, but for a lot of like renegade rows, farmer's carries, one-arm overhead presses, that sort of thing. And occasionally I like to do workouts where I do one-arm snatches, and the dumbbells are, of course, really nice for that. I've got a bunch of sandbags because Atomic Athlete prescribes a lot of sandbag work, sandbags are great. Like basically any way you slice it, sandbags suck.
Right.
So that makes them great in my book because it's a very inexpensive piece that allows you to do a lot for your work capacity. It's not going to do a lot for your absolute strength, but it's going to do a lot for your work capacity and a lot for your mental toughness if you just get used to suffering through really sucky workouts with sandbags. So, and the sandbags don't cry. They just make you cry.
Right. They're pretty awful, especially if you're going uphill.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then I've got an Airdyne, and the Airdyne I love. So one of my rowers is a Concept 2 rower, and, it is what it is. Concept 2 is Concept 2. It's an expensive piece, and of course I bought it from Fringe. So it is what it is. But the Airdyne I love because I got it at a garage sale, or a yard sale rather, for $20.
Nice.
And it's one of those nice old metal framed Airdynes, and it's another one of those things that just sucks. Like you just go on the Airdyne, you go for time or you go for 100 calories or whatever, and it's just terrible. So you may be catching a theme with me. I love these like work capacity, mid time efforts that you just have to like get into a place that is terrible and then live in that place for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
that's kind of my sweet spot.
All right. Yeah, that pushes you, man. That's
it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I have very similar Airdyne story. That's how I got my Airdyne at a really good price. Is some old guy who bought it for his wife for like rehab for her knee, and he's like, she never used it, so you can have it. Like amazing deal. But I love the Airdyne. I had family over. I think this was last Christmas. And everyone always wants to do a workout with me. They're like, I had the whole family here. I'm like, okay, let's do a workout. We didn't have a lot of time. And so I wasn't trying to be mean, but I was like, how about, we're just going to do a 3-minute workout. We'll see who's the toughest. And they're like, 3 minutes? Yeah, whatever. And so I decided we're going to do is 3-minute max effort Airdyne.
Oh, no.
And I went first. And just to show them what max effort actually looks like, because I feel like if people don't see what max effort could be, they're going to give it 70% effort and think that that's max effort. So I showed them. I was near dead at the end of it. It was awful, huffing and puffing, laying on the ground, all that stuff. And I was like, all right, your guys' turn. And miscalculated. I think out of the 4 who were there, 3 of them threw up, and like one of them like crapped his pants, and so it was just like a really, really bad experience. And now I don't know if I'll get them back in the garage gym, but man, airdynes are absolutely awful. Absolutely.
It sounds like my kind of scene, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything with a fan. So the ergometer or maybe I'm mispronouncing that, but the ergs that adjust their force to the force that or adjust their tension to the force that you're putting into it. Yeah, those are tough.
Yeah.
Another thing that's, if you want to make make your family even madder at you, sled pushes are one of those.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know that like sneak up on you.
Oh yeah.
So if you get somebody who's not used to them, they're like, oh, well, this isn't that bad. And then fast forward 3 minutes later, boom, barf.
Oh yeah, man. That anaerobic threshold that no one really ever does is like, and very few people actually train that. Very few. Even you could take really fit athletes and they'd be like, hey man, let's do a 3-minute workout. They might laugh at you like a triathlete or something, but you'll have them puking all over the place too because they just never train that capacity.
Absolutely.
All right, man. You mentioned mental toughness. What did you have more on the garage gym?
I have some really nice barbells in there, as you might imagine. Some really nice bumper plates. There's not a ton else. Some kettlebells, med balls, various things.
I would like,
pretty
if you could, and you don't have to, but if you have the time, if you want to take a picture of your garage gym, that would be awesome. I could put that in the show notes as well. So whether or not the guests see that picture will be up to whether or not you want to post a picture. But I think it'd be really cool for people to see. Maybe I'll throw a picture of mine in there too. All right, man. But you did mention mental toughness, so that makes me think of the quick fire questions of the show. So I want to jump to that part of the show because I find these answers really interesting for every guest. So I'll ask you a question. Quick question. You just give me a quick answer, and then we'll move on to the most important question of the show. So you ready?
I am.
All right, man. What's the hardest workout you've ever done?
Probably Fran CrossFit.
I could agree with that.
So I basically have a rule where I don't do Fran anymore because every time I do it, I have to go to the doctor because I get some sort of like weird, you get Fran lung. Yeah,
the Fran cough.
So I get Fran cough really, like so bad that I literally have to go to the doctor.
Wow, man, that's interesting.
So no more Fran for me.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of like what's going on there, but that's really cool, man. And not cool, but like it means that you're pushing yourself really hard. That's what I think is cool about it. Like you're like scared of yourself doing that workout because you're going to push yourself so hard that you're going to go there. That's awesome that you're going to go there every time.
And actually, so as we speak, last night they announced 16.2, so the CrossFit Open 2016, the second workout.
Yeah.
This is a workout that I'm really worried about because it's very similar in that. So the workout is 25 toes to bar, 50 double unders, and then 15 135-pound cleans.
Yeah, and then it goes to 4-minute waves, right? Or like if you make it, you get another 4 minutes. If you make it through,
you do another 4-minute wave, and then every 8 minutes the weight starts going up.
Right.
So I'm really worried about this workout for me because I just see those 135-pound cleans because thankfully I've been training long enough that that's a pretty manageable weight for me to cycle very quickly. And that's exactly the sort of situation where I get into this really bad Fran cough situation with my body is where the weight is light enough that I can cycle very quickly.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That's crazy. I mean, what's your opinion? In your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Doing things that suck for a long time. So I'm a big fan of Go Ruck challenges.
Okay.
And in Go Ruck, there's a saying, embrace the suck.
Yeah.
And if you embrace the suck, that's the entire difference between you kind of enjoying your Go Ruck challenge or you hating life for, 14 hours.
Yeah.
But on a shorter duration, I think things like airdyne, things like sandbag work, those are great things for building mental toughness. And I think one thing that's very critical is when you're doing these things that suck is you make sure that you're not having a degradation in your output or a degradation in your effort, that you're recognizing that it sucks and you're just like, well, I've got, let's say, so a great one is 100 sandbag get-ups per time. Sandbag get-up is just put a sandbag on one shoulder, lay down so that your back is touching the ground, and then stand up.
Yep.
So do that 100 times. And that's a great one because once you get like 20 in, and I mean, I'm not talking getting 50 in, you get like 20 in and you're like, you're hating life. This is horrible.
Yeah.
And you know, you've still got 80 left.
And it starts off like not bad at all. But that one.
The first 5 are okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're like, oh man, this is a bad idea. Yeah. All right, man. So, and I love that you said, just things that suck because sometimes, it really could be anything. If you're pushing yourself to grind something out, anything out, I think it's going to make you tougher.
I agree.
All right. So if you could have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
A pull-up bar.
Pull-up bar. Okay.
You could do all sorts of body weight stuff. I mean, you're not going to get Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Olympia, jacked without incremental weight that you can put on, but you can do tons of body weight stuff if you just have a floor and a pull-up bar, and that would be super sufficient for life if you could only have that one thing.
I completely agree, man. That'd be good. I would like that. All right, man. The question of the show, most important one, the best advice you have for becoming a better human, and it's 100% open-ended.
So I would say be introspective about yourself. And I know, other guests have given a lot of different answers, find Jesus, which is actually a really great answer. And, there are a few other things going there. But I would say for me, it's be introspective. Whenever things happen, really look in the mirror and say, how did I cause this? How did I react to this? What could I have done better? And this is something that I actually spend a lot of my time on, is trying to figure out how I can be a better human. I'm always trying to be a better father to my kids, a better husband to my wife, a better CEO to my employees, a better employee for Fringe Sport, because as CEO, I am, in addition to being an owner, I am an employee. And so I need to make sure that I'm, getting the productivity as an owner of Fringe out of the CEO of Fringe. And that's something that I spend a lot of time and research a lot online about. Plus, I have a good group of friends and peers around me that can really call me out on my bull, basically. And I always, whenever somebody says, oh, unfortunately this happens from time to time, Peter, you're a jerk. Except they use a little stronger words than that occasionally.
Yeah.
I always kind of look and see, well, am I really that? Or is that just that person's perception of me? And I think sometimes it is just perception, but sometimes there's a selfish and narcissistic side inside of me that I can either ignore or I can, work on and work with. One of the things about being an entrepreneur, and, at the very top of the show, I joked about being a bad employee. So I do think that a lot of people who are entrepreneurs, are doing something that's going to change the world, even in a very small way, are fundamentally, quote unquote, bad employees, because they're a bit iconoclastic. They don't want to fit into a box, and they're trying to do something new and something difficult and different. And a good employee in some cases, or many cases, is someone who just fits inside the box and kind of cranks day in and day out doing the same thing. So that's something that I think about a lot, is how can I be better? And yeah, so I would say introspection.
That's awesome, man. I really love that answer. And obviously that's what we're all about on this podcast and at Into 3 Fitness, is just becoming better, man. So that closes it out, but I'd like to, I know we've mentioned it a few times, but what's the best place for people to learn more about you and what you're doing?
I'm all Fringe Sport right now. So, check us out at www.fringesport.com. You can also find us on the Facebooks and the Instagrams and whatnot. But yeah, so I put a final plug in there. If you're looking for strength and conditioning equipment, barbells, bumper plates, stuff like that, just fringesport.com.
All right, man, that's awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. I've really enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, it's been really awesome. I've enjoyed the chat.
All right, thanks.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.